Hello guys, so that's what they call in the Philippines a PAM boat. Actually, it's a fisherman's boat. And this is also a racing boat, and it's going up to 80 kilometers per hour, which is roughly 50 miles an hour for Americans, because you guys are always complicated. You can imagine like the speed of this thing, it's absolutely crazy. Look at that. It's a little piece of plywood because it's all made of plywood, which costs, roughly $150. That's the price that I paid for it. And it's absolutely amazing. Look, you have two bamboos on the sides. And the engine in itself costs about like $500. It's a Honda engine. You can buy like a cheaper one, something else, But I wanted to have something qualitative because on the sea, in the Philippines, if you have a problem, you're kind of on your own if you don't know any other fishermen. And that was kind of my case, So here you can see some sort of like a spirited away thing, like this house in the middle of nowhere. I mean, to me, there's a lot of magic in there. I was fascinated to see that. I was like, what's the use of this thing, Like, why do they put it here in the middle of nowhere? But you can see as well that it's not extremely deep very often in the Philippines, when you... I was around Cebu, the island of Cebu, and sometimes it can get extremely shallow for very, very long distances. Yeah, why would you put a house here? And here there was another one, and this actually was on my other boat. It was a much bigger boat, but well, it was a little bit fat, a little bit slow. I didn't need to have so much space. And look at that face, like the Jack Sparrow of the Philippines. Yeah, I was super satisfied, you can see that. But that was the top speed when there were a lot of waves. We had our fun with that. It was definitely great. Look at these landscapes, it's amazing. And actually it's even more amazing to see them on video now than to be there. Actually, that's a very funny thing because it was just extremely hot. And all of this was made possible, thanks to this guy, because this guy is the guy who is able to do everything with plywood. He could build the Twin Towers with plywood. He's incredible. And he helped me so many times for a very cheap price, of course, because that's the Philippines. And here was the first time I was trying the boats that I was supposed to buy him, because he made this boat, and that was a second-hand boat. And at that moment, look at my face. I'm a little bit like that, I have a weird face because it's just so incredibly fast, this thing. I was absolutely amazed. And you were thinking like, what if there's a rock, or something, in the middle of the sea, and because here it's not so deep. You can see like the bottom of the sea. Yeah, you can see it. And actually, here it was on our way back from an island where we were together. That's his wife in front of it. And by the way, it's not such a good idea to be on the front seat because, it's very painful for the back. Because actually the bottom of this boat is flat. And well, when it hits the waves, it's super brutal. Here's the island where we were. And as you can see, there is no space which is free. Like, everything is occupied, There is no beach, there is nothing. And you're gonna see that the streets, what we can call the streets, I don't know what it is, the paths, they are extremely narrow. There is almost no space to go through this island. It's incredible. But yeah, that's why, I would say that the Philippines are sometimes good, a beautiful view and so forth. And sometimes you have this, which is like just New Delhi into one island, concentrated in one island. Here, for example, there are the guys, peeing. They throw all the trash, here, on the shore. Here there is another guy, killing a chicken, like a rooster probably, because they're doing cockfights. So probably the cock lost the fight, so now they kill it. And there are some cages around, and actually these are the cages of the cocks, which are supposed to fight. They are trained to fight, and they are of course gambling on that. So you see, in terms of hygiene, I've seen better. Like they're gonna kill the chicken near where they're gonna poop or pee. There's better than that. all this island is like that, and there are many islands like that in the Philippines. It's not all sexy and glamour, really not. Look at all these people. But well, at this moment that was fiesta. You know, fiesta is when actually they're doing a religious celebration, you know. But actually most of the time nobody knows what is the celebration. They're celebrating a saint or something like that. Most of the time everybody's here just to get drunk or to, you know, to gamble. I don't blame them for that. But originally it's religious. Look at this small street. Imagine you live there constantly the whole year. You have, you know, the air is bringing some salt on your face because you're on an island, and you're all the time itchy, salty. You cannot really take a real shower because there's no, you know, there is no clean water. I mean, there's a little bit, but not so much. You have to be careful. Here's the only beach that I saw. It's such a, you know, tiny piece of sand, and you see the other palm boats which are there. And yeah, look at that. Overcrowded. I would become crazy. I don't know how the people here deal with that. And you have to know that here on the video you see that it's a little bit grayish. It's a little bit gray, but in reality it's extremely hot, you know, extremely heavy. And on that moment I was like sweating all the time. It was... And you can feel kind of claustrophobic in that kind of mood. If you are, you know, if you're used of your comfort, if you're used of having like big spaces, big streets. But well, the people, they were nice. They were like, some of them like welcomed us in their home. And well, it wasn't luxury, of course, there was nothing like that. But, you know, the intention was here. And of course there is some sort of like they have this idea that somehow, you know, it's a privilege to welcome, you know, like a foreigner, because many people of this island never saw or rarely saw a white person, you know. So here we were sleeping. I don't know if you can see, but there's a hammock. So we spent the night here with a little view, incredible view on the roofs of this island, which is called Caobian. And you can see in this room there's, yeah, this is the master bedroom, you know, with some sort of, you know, thing to sleep. And here is where everybody sleeps. Actually, they put a carpet on the floor, which is something that Filipinos do very often, you know, to sleep. It's not really a bed, it's just a carpet, and they just sleep on it. That's it. So here we're coming back from this island, and that was a little bit wavy, and you can see on my face I'm a little bit anxious, you know. I'm looking at the horizon. Why? It's because actually it was getting shallow. Because yes, in the Philippines, especially in Cebu, like, you know, you have 6 hours which are, you know, deep water, and then 6 hours which are very shallow water. And when I say shallow, it means that it's shallow for, as I told you, very, very long distances. And then you have to be very careful to not hit some rocks, you know, at full speed. You have to be extremely careful about that. And here I got extremely lucky because I had this idea that, hey, you know, we have to slow down, you know, maybe we're gonna hit something. And there, just at that moment, we've been hitting a rock, a small thing at, you know, low speed. So here you see us like riding through the waves, but actually before that there were much bigger waves which were much funnier. And but sometimes it was difficult to film, especially with this shitty GoPro that I had. Here, we're gonna jump here, look. But again, you know, the bottom, the hole, if I can say, is flat under. So whenever you have a wave, you feel it throughout your soul, your body, you feel it everywhere. So yeah, here going full speed again. So here we're arriving at the port.
So awesome, you know, like.
How about your stay there?
Stay where?
Stay in Caobian, in the island.
No, no, I mean Caobian is another thing, but the ride, baby.
The ride.
The ride.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I love it.
Such a...
But we need to fix this first, duh?
Yeah.
Because actually here what you can see is the bar which is holding what I call the wings, you know, which is basically the two bamboos which are on each side of the boat. And this thing broke down when we went to this island because I was going very fast on some big waves, you know, so the bamboos were having a hard time. There was a lot of tensions, it broke down. And of course, with my fat ass, I broke the chair.
He never tried fishing. So we cannot call him fish. So we cannot call him a fisherman.
To fish to be fisherman.
Row, row, row your boat. Row, row. Row your boat gently on the stream. Merrily, merrily.
Look at that, we can catch up on any kind of, what do they call, you know, speedboats very quickly. That is really, really, you know, it's fun to do. You do it one time, two times after you're sick of it, but at least you did it, you know, it's fun. And sometimes I was going, you know, behind the boats, and of course, nobody will recommend you to do that, you know, to go right behind. Everybody's gonna be, oh my god, you might get trapped into some sort of currents and so on. I did it, it was okay. And here, you know, you can see me turning on the engine, and that's one of the downsides. Actually, there's no electric starter, you know, on this kind of engine. You know, sometimes there is, but it's pretty rare, and that's annoying. You know, you have to really put some strength into it. So here we're going to an island, which, you know, we had no idea what it was there. There was nothing touristic over there. You know, there's nothing on Google Maps saying like, hey, there is something there. And on this moment, actually, I had tried to avoid the noise because that's one of the downsides of, you know, PAM boating, if I can say. The big downside is the noise. It's incredibly noisy. So I had to put some stuff in my ears, but in order to, you know, to not have to put stuff in my ears, I put an exhaust pipe from a motorcycle. You can see it there. That's from a motorcycle. So it's completely DIY. Nobody recommended me to do that. They actually told me, the vendors, you know, that I should never do that because it's damaging, you know, the engine. But it was so loud that I had to do it. And that was a mistake, of course, because it was overheating the engine and the tank, the gasoline tank. And I had to release the pressure, which is exactly what I did now. I had to open the gas tank so that the pressure would go out because we were hearing a little you know, which was the massive pressure which was inside because of the heat of the exhaust pipe which was next to it. So on this island we met this guy, for example, and this guy explained to us that actually everything had been wiped out. Not everything, but actually a resort hotel had been wiped out during a typhoon because they are blessed with all the typhoons, you know, many typhoons in the Philippines, you know, which are destroying every time everything. And since then it was never rebuilt. So here you can see the PAM boat. As you can see, it's super small, super flat under, and it's kind of well done, you know. I find it pretty good looking, you know. Yeah, you can see I filmed the inside here, I mean the under, and you can see there are some fins to carry the boat. And here is my routine when I wanted to take the boat, because actually first I had to get the engine, because I could not let the engine inside the boat because otherwise maybe someone would steal it, you know, because the boat was just, you know, standing somewhere in the sea, you know, so anyone could just come in it and just take the engine. So that was my routine. I was going to Dougal's place and trying to get around the kids, you know, avoid them as much as I can. There are many kids. They love kids, you know. It's just that, you know, it's not that I don't like them. It's just that, you know, they love kids. And here I am carrying the engine, putting it into the box of the motorcycle. By the way, it was a little bit challenging to drive the motorcycle because this is about, I forgot, but something like 40 kilos, 35 kilos, you know, this engine. And when you have so much weight behind, you're like, sometimes it's wobbling, you know, when you're turning, you're like, what's gonna happen? And so yeah, every time we're going through these little slums, can you imagine the amount of noise you live, imagine there, with karaoke all day long, and the neighbors don't give a damn about what you think, how you feel, you know. Noise all the time. I could never do that. Never. If there's noise for 5 minutes, I'm already nuts, you know, so the whole day, no way.
Okay. So it's not at Douglas house.
It's with us.
Let's
So heavy. He's so heavy to me. I don't know why. Like he's as heavy as the Makina. Or maybe much heavier.
Yeah, here I'm falling, you know, because I had sandals, there were stones, it was heavy, of course. What could go wrong, I would say. So that was my routine, putting it into the PAM boat and then screwing it on the PAM boat. And of course I had to attach the arm which is connected to the propeller, and he was fixing the rudder, which once actually just, you know, went away you know, in the middle of the sea, which is annoying, you know. So you see there was a very tight space to attach the engine, you know, with the tools. You know, it was a little bit annoying, you know. Everything was kind of difficult, especially under that heat, you know. It was super hot. Then after, you know, I was putting the boat down, and you have to imagine that there is not just sharp rocks, you know, it's muddy, you know, and you get the mud until your knees, you know, like it's super sticky, muddy, I don't know. After the exhaust pipe, I tried to put like a muffler. It's called a muffler, I didn't know it even existed. It's also made to reduce the noise, and well, it provoked the same problem actually. It was overheating everything, and yeah, it wasn't working. And yeah, oh my god, no, I forgot what it is. Actually, no, that's the moment when actually, you're gonna see. I was driving just normally, and then the rudder of the boat just went away, you know, just went away like that. Because there is a genius who decided to put a rope attached to cement, you know, on the bottom of the ocean, to put a rope in the middle of nowhere. So of course the rudder went into the rope, the rudder, you know, torn everything, all the rear end of the boat, and I found the rudder actually in the sea. And you're gonna see the rear ends of the PAM boat. Look at that. So here we were actually 3 hours away from the port, because I had decided at that moment to explore some faraway places. And here you can see my girlfriend May, who is in the front of the boat to lift the rear end of the boat so that the water would not come in. And we've been riding like that the whole time. And here I was actually piloting or directing, I don't know how to say it, the boat with a paddle. Okay, now we just arrived. Here is the port, but here is low tide, low tide, and the boat is stuck. I mean stuck, no, we could go back at sea, you know, but that's not the aim, you know, because it's dark, you know, it's getting dark. And we're waiting for Jimmy to come. He's gonna come, but I have no idea how he's gonna bring the boat back to the port. I have no idea, because it's super low everywhere. And the problem is that it hits the propeller, which is a sensitive thing. That happened often, the low tide, you know, like, so you had to be careful all the time. The first thing is that in the Philippines, night comes at around 6, you know, 6:30, and that's boring, because you cannot, you know, you cannot do things very late, you know, you have to be careful. And when you come back at this time, that's what happens, you know, the low tide, and then it's complicated to ride, because there is the propeller behind, which is going pretty deep in the water, and it makes everything complicated. Yeah, so you got it. Sometimes, you know, like, that was an interesting adventure, but overall, riding this thing, taking care of it, having somebody taking care of it, worrying about safety, because, you know, it's a third world country, so if you have a problem, well, too bad, you know. You know, the Coast Guards, you know, I'm not sure they're gonna wake up for you, you know, you don't know. So it's, you know, you have to deal with that kind of situation. So it was a lot of, you know, planning, a lot of anticipating, because I had never done that. So I would not recommend it to someone who wants to do it, unless you have all the time somebody who can help you, which was my case. But, you know, you have to be careful with the low tide. This is actually the most annoying thing, you know, the low tide, because you cannot go back home whenever you want. You know, you have to always be careful the schedule of the high tide or the low tide. So well, thank you so much for watching and see you for another video soon.